Annie Ernaux won the 2022 Nobel Prize in Literature. So in this video, I will briefly talk about her life, novels, writing style, and why she is sometimes compared to Marcel Proust. Annie-Thérèse Blanche Ernaux, née Duchesne, born September 1, 1940, is a French writer who was awarded the 2022 Nobel Prize in Literature for the courage and clinical acuity with which she uncovers the roots, estrangements, and collective restraints of personal memory. Her literary work, mostly autobiographical, maintains close links with sociology. Ernaux was born in Lillebonne in Normandy and grew up in nearby Yvetot, 4, where her parents, Blanche Dumenil and Alphonse Duchesne, 5, ran a café and grocery in a working-class part of town. In 1960 she traveled to London where she worked as an au pair, an experience she would later relate in 2016's Memoir de Fille, A Girl's Story. Upon returning to France, she studied at the universities of Rouen and then Bordeaux, qualified as a schoolteacher, and earned a higher degree in modern literature in 1971. She worked for a time on a thesis project, unfinished, on Pierre de Marivaux. In the early 1970s, Ernaux taught at a lycée in Bonneville, Haute-Savoie, at the College of Avire in Ancy-Louvieux, then in Pontoise, before joining the National Center for Distance Education, where she was employed for 23 years. Ernaux started her literary career in 1974 with Les Armoires Vides, Cleaned Out, an autobiographical novel. In 1984, she won the Renaudot Prize for another of her works, La Place, A Man's Place, an autobiographical narrative focusing on her relationship with her father and her experiences growing up in a small town in France, and her subsequent process of moving into adulthood and away from her parents' place of origin.
Early in her career, Ernaux turned from fiction to focus on autobiography. Her work combines historic and individual experiences. She charts her parents' social progression, La Place, La Honte, her teenage years, Ce qu'ils descend au rein, her marriage, La Femme Jolie, her passionate affair with an Eastern European man, Passion Simple, her abortion, L'événement, Alzheimer's disease, Je ne suis pas sortie de ma nuit, the death of her mother, Une femme, and breast cancer, L'usage de la photo. Ernaux also wrote L'écriture comme un couteau, writing as sharp as a knife, with Frédéric Net. A Woman's Story, A Man's Place, and Simple Passion were recognized as the New York Times notable books, and A Woman's Story was a finalist for the Los Angeles Times Book Prize. Shame was named a Publisher's Weekly Best Book of 1998, Remain in Darkness a top memoir of 1999 by The Washington Post.
Ernaux's 2008 historical memoir Les Années, The Years, well received by French critics, is considered by many to be her magnum opus. In this book, Ernaux writes about herself in the third person, elle, or she in English, for the first time, providing a vivid look at French society just after the Second World War until the early 2000s. It is the story of a woman and of the evolving society she lived in. The Years won the 2008 Prix François Mauriac de la Région Aquitaine, the 2008 Marguerite Duras Prize, the 2008 Prix de la Langue Française, the 2009 Telegram Readers Prize, and the 2016 Striga European Prize. Translated by Alison L. Strayer, The Years was a finalist for the 31st Annual French-American Foundation Translation Prize, was nominated for the International Booker Prize in 2019, and won the 2019 Warwick Prize for Women in Translation. Her popularity in Anglophone countries increased sharply after The Years was shortlisted for the International Booker.
On October 6, 2022, it was announced that Ernaux would be awarded the 2022 Nobel Prize in Literature for the courage and clinical acuity with which she uncovers the roots, estrangements, and collective restraints of personal memory. Ernaux is the 16th French writer, and the first French woman, to receive the Literature Prize. In congratulating her, the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, said that she was the voice of the freedom of women and of the forgotten. Many of Ernaux's works have been translated in English and published by Seven Stories Press. Ernaux is one of the 7 founding authors from whom the press takes its name. Ernaux supported Jean-Luc Mélenchon in the 2012 French presidential election. In 2018, Ernaux expressed her support for the Yellow Vests protests. Ernaux has repeatedly indicated her support for the BDS movement, a Palestinian-led campaign promoting boycott, divestment and sanctions against Israel. In 2018, the author signed a letter alongside about 80 other artists that opposed the holding of the Israel-France cross-cultural season by the Israeli and French governments. In 2019, Ernaux signed a letter calling on a French state-owned broadcasting network not to air the Eurovision Song Contest, which was held in Israel that year. In 2021, after the Operation Guardian of the Walls, she signed another letter that called Israel an apartheid state, claiming that to frame this as a war between two equal sides is false and misleading. Israel is the colonizing power. Palestine is colonized. Ernaux signed a letter that supported the release of Georges Abdullah, who was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1982 for the assassination of an American military attaché, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Arth Ray, and an Israeli diplomat, Yaakov Barsimantov. According to the letter, the victims were active Mossad and CIA agents, while Abdullah fought for the Palestinian people and against colonization. Following the announcement of the award of the Nobel Prize, Ernaux showed solidarity with people's uprising in Iran against their government. The protests that followed the death of a young woman in the custody of Guidance Patrol, Morality Police, initially started against compulsory hijab law in Iran but soon took a broader focus on liberty. Ernaux said in an interview she was absolutely in favor of women revolting against this absolute constraint. Abdulrazak Gurnah FRSL, born December 20, 1948, is a Tanzanian-born British novelist and academic. He was born in the Sultanate of Zanzibar and moved to the United Kingdom in the 1960s as a refugee during the Zanzibar Revolution. 1. His novels include Paradise, 1994, which was shortlisted for both the Booker and the Whitbread Prize, Desertion, 2005, and By the Sea, 2001, which was longlisted for the Booker and shortlisted for the Los Angeles Times Book Prize. Gurnah was awarded the 2021 Nobel Prize in Literature for his uncompromising and compassionate penetration of the effects of colonialism and the fates of the refugee in the gulf between cultures and continents. He is Emeritus Professor of English and Post-Colonial Literatures at the University of Kent. Abdulrazak Gurnah was born on December 20, 1948 in the Sultanate of Zanzibar. He left the island, which later became part of Tanzania, at the age of 18 following the overthrow of the ruling Arab elite in the Zanzibar Revolution, arriving in England in 1968 as a refugee. He is of Arab heritage, and his father and uncle were businessmen who had immigrated from Yemen. Gurnah has been quoted saying, "I came to England when these words, such as asylum seeker, were not quite the same. More people are struggling and running from terror states." He initially studied at Christ Church College, Canterbury, whose degrees were at the time awarded by the University of London. He then moved to the University of Kent, where he earned his PhD with a thesis titled Criteria in the Criticism of West African Fiction, in 1982. From 1980 to 1983, Gurnah lectured at Bayero University Kano in Nigeria. He then became a professor of English and post-colonial literature at the University of Kent, where he taught until his retirement, 12. In 2017, he is now Professor Emeritus of English and Post-Colonial Literatures at the University, 13. Although Gurnah's novels were received positively by critics, they were not commercially successful and, in some cases, were not published outside the United Kingdom. After he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2021, publishers and booksellers struggled to keep up with the increase in demand for his work. It was not until after the Nobel announcement that Gurnah received bids from American publishers for his novel Afterlives. Riverhead Books plans to release it in August 2022. Riverhead also acquired rights to By the Sea and Desertion, two Gurnah works that had gone out of print. Alongside his work in academia, Gurnah is a creative writer and novelist. He is the author of many short stories, essays, and 10 novels. While his first language is Swahili, he has used English as his literary language. However, Gurnah integrates bits of Swahili, Arabic and German into most of his writings. He has said that he had to push back against publishers to continue this practice and they would have preferred to italicize or anglicize Swahili and Arabic references and phrases in his books. Gurnah has criticized the practices in both British and American publishing that want to make the alien seem alien, by marking foreign terms and phrases with italics or by putting them in a glossary. As academic Hamid Dabashi notes, Gurnah is integral to the manner in which Asian and African migratory and diasporic experiences have enriched and altered English language and literature.